Yeah, hey, blind guy doing stuff today. Happy Friday. It is January and it's a Friday. I think it's the first Friday in January. So getting this year 2017 moving right along. If you haven't yet and you like watching some of these videos and you've been watching them from time to time, hit subscribe up there and hit like too. And tell your friends about this. We'll be covering all kind of topics here on Blind Guy Doing Stuff channel. Looking to save up and get a camera so I can kind of take a camera out and about and show you some of my adventures out in the real world. So thanks for checking us out today, and we are going to make a video today on another video that's going all over the internet, and you might have seen it. I actually have not watched it. I try to not really watch things like this. I've caught some of the sound snippets, but I haven't watched it just because of how disturbing it is, and it is quite disturbing what happened. And if you didn't catch the story, it was in Chicago. It's four African Americans that came along. There was a person with a disability that just so happened to be white there. The four African Americans were in a car. Apparently, the person with the disability knew one of the people in the car. They got him in the car. Basically, they kidnapped him, took him home, and tortured him and just aggravated him for like 2 days. I think they said 48 hours. Then let him go. One of the disturbing parts about it is that they streamed it on Facebook Live, and somebody called an assault to the police. The police came, and then on their way, they found the guy walking around the street. Some of the things they had done to him is they cut his sleeves off his clothes, they had cut his hair, they had cut his head with a knife, um, they had punched him and beat him, apparently made him drink water out of a toilet. So, very disturbing, and then they streamed a lot of it on Facebook Live. So, very disturbing, very bad thing, and they have been arrested, and they were charged with assault, and they were charged with a hate crime. And I wanted to make a video today to talk about this idea of a hate crime. And I had posted up that I believe, and the question is this a hate crime against white people, or is this a hate crime against people with disability? And what is a hate crime? So first of all, hate crime is a designation in our law through our justice system. And according to the FBI's website, they have been fighting hate crimes all the way back from World War I. And a hate crime is, and this is by memory, the definition is, and they say, for the purposes of statistics, a hate crime is any crime such as like murder, assault, arson, that is motivated by bias towards somebody's race, disability, sexual orientation, gender, or gender orientation. And I could have left out one or two there, maybe. So that's what a hate crime is. Now, the two words we want to focus in on this particular case are race and disability. Now, yesterday I posted up that I believe that this was a hate crime against a person with a disability. And that did not meet with some approval for some people, and people are so fired up about this. White people, I've noticed, get so fired up about race. I mean, it seems way more than African Americans. So I had one guy go so far as he told me to hang myself because I was criticizing the white race. This is how fired up people are about race and what's going on in this country. And we can make another video about where that comes from. But it has been purposely put there, and it's there, it's out there. So I said it was against the disability. And the reason why people are saying, no, 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 this is a hate crime against white people is because during the video, you can hear the perpetrator say things like, F white people, F Donald Trump, say you love black people, messing, all these kind of things. And that's why they're saying it's a hate crime against white people. But I contend it's a hate crime against people with disabilities because, it's both probably, but I contend is mainly against a person with a disability. And here's why. Because in this case, the thing about this person that is in threat is his disability that is being threatened, not his race. They picked this guy up at the McDonald's because he had a disability, not because he was white. If they wanted to target a white person, they would have just picked any random able-bodied person off the street. But that's not what they did. They went and picked somebody who was vulnerable and somebody with a disability. And then they took him back and tied him up and all the stuff happened. But again, if if you don't have a disability, you're not going to get a car. You're not going to get in a car necessarily with a bunch of people you don't know or barely know. So the reason why this whole thing happened was because of the disability. Now, was it awful for them to say F Whitey and F Donald Trump and all this other stuff? Of course, they're apparently not that great of people, or they've had some. I would rephrase that, and I would say they've had significant amount of trauma in their life to sort of make them that callous and make them feel like this is okay to doing this to another human being. And frankly, in the United States, it's put out there that some of that stuff is okay to do to a human being. I mean, look at that. You got the entire Republican Party talking about out there we should take people, lock them up, and torture them. I mean, Donald Trump says bring back torture. So, I mean, our government tortures people right now. So, one of the things I see about this video is sort of like a mirror of our society and what has gone on and how callous people have become. And the big problem I'm seeing with it out there on the internet, and this goes on every time there's an event like this, is this idea that people have to reach, and especially if it has to do with African Americans, they have to reach and make sure they pull together some kind of equivalency. They try to pull together this false equivalency, and they say, hey, look, see, black people are bad too. African Americans are bad too. Look, they're torturing people. They're hurting people. They're doing bad things. We white people are doing it, but they're doing it too. Look. White people are under attack. But that's really not the case. We have isolated incidents of these things happening. Now, here's a statistic for you that I heard probably about 6 or 7 months ago on the Jim Bohannon show from an author who wrote a book about this. Is there, up until the mid-1960s, there was one African American in the United States lynched per day in the United States. Okay, so that was 100 years. So you add on top of that all the prisons. You add on top of that now the police shootings, which, by the way, have been going on the entire time. They're all the time. Police pulling over black people, shooting them or taking them to jail. I've been mixed up in that in Alabama, so I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen the police target black people. I've been there, done that. So it goes on in the United States, and so there is no equivalency, white people. This is a very bad event, and it's something that was very bad in Chicago. But it is not a hate crime on white people. Your, or our, I guess I should say. I mean, I'm white, I guess. I don't see myself as a white person. I see myself as a human. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, I'm not like, yay, I'm white. That's not, I don't get any kind of pleasure or any kind of identity out of whiteness. I just don't. A lot of people do. But our place in the world and our place in the United States is not being threatened. We're still at the top of the game. We still own the whole thing. We still own the farm, as they say. So we really need to sort of educate ourselves on what's going on here. And just because we're giving African Americans more power, or trying to, with the Black Lives Matter movement and all the things going on right now where they're saying, hey, we've had enough of this, enough with the prisons, enough with the drug laws, enough. So all these things, giving black people more rights, giving African Americans more rights, giving people the rights to, walk down the street without being targeted, just because we're trying to give black people these rights does not mean that your rights are being threatened. Now, are individual white people's rights being threatened in the United States? Of course, just like everybody else. And that has nothing to do with African Americans. That has to do with capitalism. And that has to do with the military-industrial complex. And that has to do with our society basically melting down because of the 1% taking all the money, taking all the resources, and leaving us with nothing down here at the bottom. So that's why white people are feeling disenfranchised. It has nothing to do with African Americans. And I'm going to stop here because I'm going to kind of get off on a tangent there. But those thoughts in your head, white person, if you're watching this, that African Americans you're feeling a little uneasy, that's all been placed in your head by society, imagery, even the government. So education, books. So we really need to recognize what's going on in our life, recognize what's going on in our society. We need to, as I said before, we need to start being nicer to each other. We need to start, treating people with respect, and that will begin to trickle down one person at a time individually, where cases like this in Chicago will stop happening. I really don't think at the moment, and so we just have to just keep trying. But this is not a hate crime on white people, and I think this would have a bigger effect if they would charge him with a hate crime against the person with a disability, because I'm a person with a disability, and if there's any place in my life that I feel threatened, it's because of my disability, primarily because of economically. It's been quite a long time since I felt physically threatened because of I was disabled in a bad situation, but economically I certainly feel threatened as a person with a disability. So people with disabilities need protecting. The white race right now in the United States does not need protecting as a whole in general. Now, again, I want to keep saying this over and again. Do individual white people need protecting? Of course. It's just like everybody else. So this is a bad event that happened in Chicago. We need to recognize it as a bad event and move on. And stop holding it up and using it to build your case against African Americans, and to build your case that somehow white people are exonerated because suddenly a black person did something bad to a white person. So that's my video for today. I am the blind guy doing stuff. I hope you liked the video. Just some of my thoughts on race, disability, and hate crimes in the United States. So if you like it, hit subscribe. If you don't like it, hit subscribe, and hit dislike and share it, or whatever you need to do. So thanks for checking it out, and happy Friday, and have a good one. Bye-bye.
Studio mode. Stop recording button.